of where's the fort. Right now, we're standing just inside of what we consider to be the front or the main gate, because it faces the river. So, if you dig down deep enough where that little bit of stone is, there's actually remnants of stone in the ground of the front gate. But the entire front wall and two bastions were destroyed by the Mississippi River. The river came up that close, undermined it, but did not come and destroy the rest of the fort. The British abandoned the fort because they felt the river would destroy the entire fort, so they really didn't blow it up. I think one of the things says they destroyed it. From what we know from written record, they actually just opened the drains inside the fort and left, feeling that the river would totally, destroy it. Well, the river stopped right there, and at least one, Romantic historian has stated that the French River drove the British from Fort de Chartres, and it actually did, but whether it's French or not, I don't know. But at any rate, there would have been a wall and there would have been a gatehouse right there. Just like, look, it looked a lot like that gatehouse. That gatehouse was built the way it looks now. In and around 1936. Prior to that, there was and we'll make our way around there. But that's a pretty good footprint of that rear gate, and the front gate would have been very close to that.
Now, would the front gate have been larger?
And it could have been. I don't think it would have been much larger. I think it just would have been designated. Somewhere I saw a thing that talked about that the flag flew over the front gate, but there's all indication. I've never seen that. I don't know. I only saw it one time, and then again going back to 1998, we saw original historic places in France that had a flag flying off of the main gate, and it was on a staff that like one that just kind of comes out. I don't know what they got a term for that, but like on a banner. But we've never seen that. I think, in fact, the pro se may talk about the flag being in that bastion over there. But there's one of the things that you're going to find. If you study Fort de Chartres, there's a lot of there's more questions than answers. There is a book out now. What's the name of the book?
Lives of Fort de Chartres.
Yeah, Lives of Fort de Chartres. I don't think he goes into too much detail on what physically was here. I have not. I've gone through the book a little bit, but I've not read the whole book. But there are there are a lot of things that you'll hear people say. Well, like where the stone came from. Well, we think over there. There's some conjecture here. And then there's facts that are based on archaeology and research, but there is some conjecture also, and that's kind of the way because the way the fort was actually built. And I'm not going to mention it now until we go over to the powder magazine. Does anybody have a cell phone with them?
No.
Sure, everybody.
Okay. Well, I
What do you
bet
want to know?
David don't. I bet
I do
Dave,
not.
no, I don't either.
What do you want to know?
Well, I'm just asked because I would go and get mine, but I'm going to need a flashlight when we get to the powder
Oh,
magazine,
okay.
because I want to show y'all a really cool thing, graffiti that was left here on the inside the powder magazine, and that really is kind of cool. Yes.
I know you just touched on it, but how much of the back wall could they archaeologically locate? Or just a little bit there, or
Yeah,
most
yeah.
of it gone, or-
Wait, well, and you used the phrase, not to correct you, but I will. Actually, it's the front wall.
Oh, okay.
But we all, I still do that. That gate has been on many calendars and postcards. The front gate of Fort de Chartres, because we think highway. We think that end of it. They thought river, and so the fort faced the river. But anyhow, there's been archaeological digs, and there's just like not much in the ground because the river came up, and actually the archaeologists can pretty much see when they dig even where the riverbank was, where the river stopped. There is a little bit of stone in there because I know that's been excavated down to some historic stone underneath that little block thing there, but not a whole lot on that wall. Yeah.
But they do know that the fort was square, right? So, I mean,
Yeah.
they could in fact measure from the front wall where they have a foundation, from the back
Yeah,
wall.
yeah. It was reasonably square, and it was there's a couple of bastions. Well, at least the one over there is kind of jacked up, but you know, yeah, you're right. And one of the things that I've told people, they say, well, how do you know? I said, well, it was symmetrical to a degree, and we can actually measure from the foundations of those buildings to that front wall, and we can come back here and measure the same, and where we think the wall then should be is where it's pretty close. Yeah. Now this building is interesting also. This building was the King's storehouse, and what I find interesting about that building is I've been in a couple. I've had the great opportunity to be in a couple historic sites that have warehouses. I mean, original actual storehouses, warehouses, like Louisburg, for example, up in Nova Scotia. They have a building that is rebuilt. It's all rebuilt, but it's on the original, and they've got tons of documentation, and it has a dirt floor. That warehouse has a dirt floor, but it also doesn't have a fireplace. This building, the whole building was a storehouse, and again, I've always thought of it as being a warehouse because the goods come in off the river right here. They come in through the gate and they go into the King's storehouse. I believe now, and we also know that building has a historic cellar in that building, right there, which a dirt floor, you don't necessarily have a historic cellar. So, and we also know this building had a fireplace because it had offices, and they could have even been a living quarter for the storekeeper, but just a little bit of a different building. So again, I always considered in my mind that it was, for years, that it was a storehouse, it was a warehouse. It wasn't a storehouse like you come in and buy stuff. And then one day I was talking to Jan Miller, who is an avid researcher. Some of you may know Jan. She was here for a while, then she moved on. And we were talking about one day, and I said, "What was it was like a warehouse?" And she goes, "Oh no," she goes, "It was a storehouse. It was a place of business." And she actually had, which would be great to get that information. She actually had names of storekeepers that were in this building, and she had several that she could tick off. And she said, although they took care of business in there, which is cool because we actually did have a trading post inside the fort, and I for years and years I didn't think we did. I thought there was traders and business people, outside the fort. But she said, oh no. And then when you think about it, having a wooden floor and a fireplace, well, that was a building meant to be used and kind of lived in. Now I do want to mention that. I'll get into this just a little bit here, and you can ask more questions as we walk around. The work began here. There's some discussion about when the state bought the site. One of the signs says 1913. We know there was a group of interested citizens in Prairie du Rocher that got the ball rolling, and a couple others outside the city, outside the village. They got the ball rolling, but we just had this discussion at our last gun club meeting, and Dave Horn, bless his heart, he is our gun club historian, and he's a great guy for the job because he comes up with more stuff than you can shake a stick at. He knows that, and I knew this too before, we all knew it before, that the property was divided pretty much down the center. So there was two lots here when the state bought the property. On at least this lot over here, there was a German farmer who lived inside the fort. And there's a picture in the museum that shows a barn, an outbuilding setting what I consider to be on the end of that barracks foundation, and it makes sense. If you bought the property when it became open for settlement by the federal government, and you came in here and you've got this place with rock laying everywhere, and it's, you're going to build your house and build a barn, well, why not use the foundation that's already there? It makes sense to me. And the picture is in the museum if you want to take a good close look at it. I think that the photographer was standing on that side, shooting toward the powder magazine. In the 1880s, that picture was taken. But we know there was a German farmer and his family lived inside the fort. And the youngest son, Nathan, I don't know why or what, but one year at the Winter Rendezvous, he knew the German farmer. He had researched it, and he knew the German farmer's name and everything. So at the Winter Rendezvous, he had a German meal. I didn't, but hey, it was good food. So what, I don't care. It could have been a Lithuanian farmer, but anyhow, there was a German farmer and all that. So the state actually didn't buy it all in 1913 at all. It took several years. It may have been 1915 when they got it done. It may have been even a little bit later, because from evidence tells us they didn't start work here till 1919, and then they started basically on the powder magazine, and they started cleaning everything up. Now, originally, and there are old photographs around, everything, including this building and including this building, were just low foundations, and you can see a line along there. And all the foundations are built on the original French foundations in the ground. And through the years of archaeology, we've been able to see a number of times where, when they're digging down, you can actually see the original foundations in the ground. And my understanding is that the buildings with cellars, when the state came in here, they simply dug out the dirt in the cellars and exposed so a lot of the stone in the cellars is original stone. It's been cleaned up. Every kid in the world that lived, well, I was raised 35 miles from here, and I can remember coming down coming down to the fort, and you climb down the holes and you got to pull rocks loose to get your foothold to get back out, and we didn't know, but we were actually probably removing historic rocks.
Some of which I had in my backyard in South St. Louis.
Yeah. There you go. But at any rate, that's the story behind these two buildings, and we can make our way on down.